I did a simple handicap for Friday, November 15th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. Hopefully your Friday is off to a fantastic start. If we have made it to the end of another work week and the start of another NFL week with Thursday Night Football kicking off last night, we've got a full slate of games ahead of us. So let's get you on your way this Friday morning with the final market rundown for NFL week number 11. Things start off on Sunday in Chicago with the Green Bay Packers going on the road, now down to a 5-point favorite as Bears money continues to come into the market. Total continues to creep down a little bit further as well, as we're at the flat 40s for the first time all week this morning at Chris, as well as Buckeye and Bet Online. Under money, totals coming in, dog money, dog is coming in. We've seen the Chicago Bears injury report clean up a little bit along the offensive line, and we're also getting perhaps a little bit more clarity on what's going on behind the scenes, as there was a long Reddit thread that allegedly Tyson Bagent and his dad were leaking information about receivers wanting to bench Caleb Williams and all of the news that came from that earlier this week. Now, you go to a Reddit thread and you don't really know what's true and what's not. That seems to be the story for the Bears basically the last month and a half. Don't know what to make of it. Interesting storyline. Is the big thing with this game and this handicap is, look, everybody knows the price is inflated on the Green Bay Packers. We're seeing Green Bay this week be one of the most popular sides bet at every sports book across the United States. Like, it's pretty clear what's going on here if you're looking at this game from a sharp square divide. The big issue that you're looking at here, as this number creeps in, is what type of effort are you going to get from the Chicago Bears on either side? A lot to decipher. I can't quite make sense of much of it, and this Reddit thread has made things even more confusing. And so, similar to Carolina, New York last week, really don't have a lot to say on this. I have a pretty good idea of what's going on in the market, pretty good idea of how this is lining up. It's just one of those games that you can't quite make enough sense of to get comfortable to get into the market. Cleveland on the road at the New Orleans Saints. It is down to a pick'em at Chris as well as Buckeye are the Cleveland Browns. We haven't seen any sportsbook flip yet on Cleveland, but I do anticipate that is going to come, and the Browns are going to go off in this game as a small favorite. I think we see this come off of the pick'em later today as limits continue to increase and the Browns continue to take money. If you listen to the live stream on Sunday, you're in a good spot. If you listen to any episodes so far this week, you're in a good spot with the Cleveland Browns as well on this game, a side that I have liked every single day this week and certainly continue to look better with that position. LA Rams on the road at the New England Patriots. 4.5 is the number for the Rams, left to right across the screen with one exception. Circus Sports in Las Vegas holding steady at 5 total in this game from 44 down to 43.5. We're looking at Joe Noteboom's status unclear for Sunday. Rob Havenstein is not expected to play according to Sean McVay. So you do have some question marks emerging on the Patriots offensive line. For the Patriots defensive line, Christian Barmore returned to practice, has not played so far this season, dealing with the blood-clot injury that kept him out of the season so far to date. He has been at the facility. He's been practicing. He's allegedly been keeping in shape. I don't know if we see him out there on Sunday based on everything that has been reported. That seems a bit extreme to return on a Thursday in a limited basis and be right back on the field on Sunday after missing the duration of the season, perhaps a ramp-up period going into next week. We'll see what that status is confirmed a little bit later. Certainly a massive addition to the defense if he is able to go. Keep an eye on that one a little bit later today with the injury report. Baltimore on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ravens 3-point favorites, total up to 48.5. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on this number without a ton of movement. We're just seeing the VIG bounce back and forth. And when we're talking about key defensive injuries to watch, Kyle Hamilton returns as a bit of a surprise, certainly after how he looked on Wednesday, limited fashion on Thursday, and now there's an expectation he does have a chance to play on Sunday. His status and his presence on the field would be enormous. And I do believe that as the week goes on, not just because of his potential status, but I get the impression we see the Ravens take a little bit of money here at 3 minus 120 as limits get higher into the weekend, trending towards Sunday. Las Vegas on the road at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins still a 7-point favorite with a total in this game of 44. Tyreek Hill asked about the wrist. Said he's likely to need surgery, but plans to play through it, consistent with what we heard last week from reporters. So expectations are that he would be back on the field. The Dolphins' run game really struggled against the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. Alec Ingold, the fullback who's been a pretty key part of them being able to run the football this season, was not on the field on Monday. He's been limited both days in practice this week. Outside chance for him to be on the field on Sunday. Something to keep an eye on if you're looking at the Dolphins as a big favorite here, especially in the prop market, as they have 3 running backs who can get touches out of the backfield. The prop market on Monday night was very divided in terms of Raheem Mostert props. I know on the TikTok live stream Monday afternoon that we did, everybody was talking about Mostert's overs. I was on the other side of that, and there was conversation about why and what you're looking at and how he's being handled with some of the fumbling issues and that backfield being a bit divided. Keep an eye on the status of Ingold, as he would have an impact on prop markets this week. A ton of volume for Achane. Don't necessarily expect that to change, but in terms of explosive play potential on the ground that we didn't see Monday night, if you get Ingold in there, that's a big difference maker for that Miami run game. Jacksonville on the road at the Detroit Lions. Detroit holding steady as a 14-point favorite. It was a softer 14 yesterday morning. As the day progressed, we saw some of the 14s tick up just slightly in terms of the VIG on some of the sides. Total 46.5 holding steady. Not too much of an update on either side here to talk about. The only news really has been Sam Laporta for the Lions. Would not expect to see him on the field on Sunday. If he is, that would be a surprise. Minnesota on the road at the Tennessee Titans. In this game, the Titans still a 6-point favorite at most sports books. I do think we see this come off of the 6 and get to the 5.5 number left to right across the screen as Friday progresses. The Sam Darnold injury did keep him limited participant in practice, but expectations are that he is going to be good to go, and so I think that's more news than anything, and if we do see a move off the 6, it's going to be an opinion-based one more than anything from a player personnel standpoint. San Francisco hosting the Seattle Seahawks. 49ers, a 6.5-point favorite. This has been locked in all week. We haven't seen much movement on this game, side nor total. Looking at Nick Bosa, after the game on Sunday against Tampa Bay, he said that playing through the hip injury that he had was the most painful thing that he has done during his time in the NFL. I think everybody will remember the play against Baker Mayfield where he was trying to bring him down and just couldn't. It was very un-Nick Bosa-like. He has not practiced yet this week, dealing with the injury. Initial thoughts and some of the reports coming from 49ers writers is that he perhaps worsened the injury. It's probably the wrong terminology. It's what sounded right in my mind as I said that. But perhaps aggravated things a little bit further. A little bit better there in some speech and verbiage there. And so if he's at the NP again today, I think that definitely puts his status in doubt for Sunday, as tough of a guy as he is and what he will play through. Just seeing how much he struggled. It was also viewed as one of his worst performances in a game that he has played ever in his career. So that injury seems to be impactful. We're seeing McCaffrey on a limited basis. That's likely more management than anything else. But keep an eye on that Bosa status here, as this is just a game that to me is taking on a feel here of just one of those games that you see it touch 7, I'm going to think differently. We've been sitting at 6.5 all week, and there has been ample reason and opportunity for the 49ers to be bet. It just hasn't happened. And it's one of those things you're just staring at on the board. You're wondering if it's going to get taken. And to see the Thursday limit bumps come and go and nothing happen, and to see the injury report a little bit on the fringe with some guys for the 49ers, just wonder if those swing the other way later today if we do see a bye on the Seahawks here at 6.5. Atlanta on the road at the Denver Broncos. 2 is the number from left to right across the screen. Total 44. A little bit of Falcons money back into the market at 2.5. Not something that I agree with. Looking further into this game as the week has progressed, Bo Nix standing out as a top 5 passer when kept clean over the last month and a half of football as this Broncos offense has trended up. And I'm hearing other podcasts that I respect, looking at some of the breakdowns, and everything's talking about how this can be a game that the Broncos O-line absolutely dominates. And I fully agree with that sentiment. And I do think we see Kirk Cousins struggle in the pocket in the face of some of this pressure that the Broncos D-line, an aggressive D-line, is able to generate. And so I do think this is a good matchup here for the Broncos. A story that came out on Tuesday night. Broncos have been away for a couple of weeks. They replaced the grass at Mile High Stadium. It was something they did last year, and I looked into it and was going through some of the totals and pace. There wasn't a big change in that. The reason was labeled as 4-player safety. Wonder a little bit, just being the Falcons are an indoor dome team that has played the majority of their games so far this season indoors, getting them outside on a surface that's new, perhaps not as strong footing-wise. Are they going to be prepared for that? Certainly Denver being at home with this happening in other seasons past should be prepared for it, especially with some of those changes happening with the same coaching staff. So I wonder if that's a bit of an on-the-side element that might have an impact on this game as you watch some of the Falcons team, which is built on that outside zone. Running backs very good footing-wise once they get outside that tackle range. Let's see if that's something that comes into play on Sunday in this matchup. Another thing that could absolutely come into play as we look at Kansas City on the road at the Buffalo Bills is the surprise news that Harrison Butker, placed on IR, is going to miss the next 4 games. He has been absolutely crucial in deciding some of these games for Kansas City that have been very close in high leverage games. You take him off of the field, that's all of a sudden a bit of an interesting wrinkle that you think a tight game, high leverage spots, you're looking later in the game for a tight score line and you need that big kick from distance. I mean, it's happened the entire time he has been with the Chiefs, and now he is not going to be on the field. The Chiefs bring in the young kicker from the Jets who willingly walked away from the Jets to go play 4 games for the Chiefs, perhaps to get bigger exposure and just get away from the Jets, which we'll talk about in a second. That could certainly be something here for Kansas City that comes into play later in the game. Something else we're going to see from the Bills is an impact of what looks to be a game without Dalton Kincaid and without Keon Coleman, as Kincaid was a DNP for the 2nd day in a row. Amari Cooper trending towards playing. Injury situation for the Bills playing out basically exactly as we have expected it here every day on the podcast. We are seeing Chris, the market low at the moment at Buffalo -2. Cincinnati on the road at the LA Chargers, 1 or 1.5 everywhere across the screen. Total 47.5 or 48. We haven't seen much movement in this game the last 24 hours. Not a lot of news to look at as well. Interesting facts and a few info pieces that came up, how significant the pressure impact on Justin Herbert has been so far this season. Second best when pressured. Second best when kept clean, second worst when pressured. Bit of alliteration with the second best and second worst back-to-back in the stat. Pulling it off the top of my mind, I didn't realize the divide was that significant. A lot of that kind of fueled a bit by injury and his inability to escape the pocket in some of those earlier games against slightly tougher defenses in those matchups as well. So I do think there's a bit of noise in that number. I think he has a great game. Part of the reason why I've liked the over so far this week, and we have released it as our only release so far this week. And on the other side, you wonder, what's the matchup of Hendrickson against Alt going to look like? Potentially one of the best pass rushers for the Bengals against one of the best young offensive linemen in the league. That's going to be a battle. We've seen Alt step up and neutralize a lot of great pass rushers so far this season. So that's a matchup to definitely watch. Another thing to watch, perhaps some of the best injury reporting we have seen. By now, you may have seen the Twitter thread that is documenting T. Higgins at Bengals practice and the speed at which he runs up the hill to get to practice. And yesterday, it was a full sprint. Awesome Twitter thread to look through. I would encourage everybody to go through and search T. Higgins Hill. You'll get the videos, you'll get the documentation. Based on that video, some key insights that suggest he may be able to play in this game on Sunday based on the behavior and how he handled it versus how he's handled it in the past and how other players from the Bengals have handled that hill they go up to get to practice as well. So something to keep an eye on, something to watch. His status would be huge for the Bengals in this game, would also be significant for the over, bringing that number up. So I do want everybody to take a second, if you're interested, go over and check out that Twitter thread. Very intriguing injury breakdown that is a little bit different than what we've been getting from a lot of the Twitter doctors and certainly some of the injury alert services so far this season. Indianapolis on the road at the New York Jets. Jets are holding steady at -4 amid Devontae Adams not practicing for the 2nd day in a row, amid the kicker walking off the team to go play for Kansas City, against Sauce Gardner going back and forth in Instagram DM fights and messages with live streamers, against the tackling presentation we talked about yesterday as well, being held by the head coach. So there's There's just a bevy of everything wrong going on with the Jets so far this week. They continue to get bet. On the other side, there's no shortage of issues for the Indianapolis Colts. Curious to see how Jonathan Taylor props are handled. If the Jets' tackling presentation that was put on display during the week does not come to fruition, this is a very bad run defense against Jonathan Taylor, who's going to get a major efficiency bump with Anthony Richardson starting back under center. It's a pretty well-known fact at this point just how much better Taylor is with Richardson than other quarterbacks, specifically Joe Flacco. And so I wonder prop-wise if we see the adjustment that is proper and if we get to a right price on that one. Houston on the road at the Dallas Cowboys, still Texans 7.5 as Pearson Collins back at practice. Total in this game from 43.5 down to 42. Really not a lot to say about this game and haven't had much to say for the duration of the week. So it could be a game we revisit on Sunday afternoon after the late games conclude before Sunday Night Football kicks off on the opening lines reaction for Week 12 over on the RAS Picks YouTube channel, which is where I will be and where I will see each and every one of you next. It's been a fun week. Lots of sides and totals in play this week. Hopefully we get some good results to go our way. If anything updates, I will be updating the pinned comment thread over on the Week 11 preview stream on the YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out on Saturday or Sunday to see if there's any updates or any positions added, that is where they will be. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in all week. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you stopping by. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you on Sunday afternoon.